And so I was doing this, introduction. You should meet Sarah. Sarah's great. Well, I did that one time and it did not go well. And I was like, I don't like having my name attached to that. So
Today on Time We Discuss, I have Laura Kuvion with me. Laura, thank you for joining me.
thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Absolutely. So, Laura, you are a recruiter. You work with a recruiting agency. I know I've never worked with a recruiter before, so I know very, very little. I've heard of headhunters. I don't know if they're the same thing, but I bet you do.
I work on behalf of companies, helping them find talent. So the headhunter works on behalf of the talent, helping them find a company. So I work with the company. I help them find whatever role they're looking for. I serve online-based businesses, so all my work is virtual. And so it can be delivery, sales, ops, finance, marketing. Those are our big five. Part of my day could look like working with the client and on a sales call and getting them to be a client of ours to actually use our services and what role they need. I could also be on a call helping a client formulate, again, what that role is, what their org chart structure looks like, strategically speaking, what the next strategic hire is, because a lot of times entrepreneurs, again, that's my target audience, is just filling in holes where they see gaps and not thinking about it on big picture. I could also be working on the actual process of recruiting. And so we have inbound and outbound recruitment methods. And so inbound is the job descriptions and the job openings we're all familiar with on LinkedIn, Indeed. So it can include administration work, like posting a job, looking through all the applicants that have applied and, moving them forward or not moving them forward, creating a skill set assessment for them to go through, and also interviewing them. That's a big part of the time and the job is actually meeting with candidates and on a Zoom call, interviewing and screening them. And then there's outbound recruiting methods where I actually go outbound and source someone, kind of like a sales job, really, and making sure, seeing if they're a fit for the role and saying, hey, would you like to apply for this job? Let's hop on a call, see if you're interested. So that's kind of the recruitment part. And then also part of my day is spent again with the client, the company that is hiring, and helping them during what we call the integration phase, so the 90-day onboarding phase, and helping them write scorecards and set up their performance management to make sure the person that comes into their company is set up for success, that the reporting manager is set up for success, because our guarantee lasts 90 days. So we really want to walk through those 90 days with the company. So it can look like that. It could also look like, because I'm a recruiter and I own the recruiting agency, it can look like being on a podcast. It could look like posting on social media. So it's kind of a lot of things.
That sounds really cool. A lot of variety in your day. I like that. So, Laura, let's talk about how you got started with this recruitment agency. Why recruitment? What led you down this road?
Yes, it was kind of a left turn here, a right turn there. My background, corporately speaking, was in large conferences and trade shows. I planned those. So I've always been people focused in my career path. Took time off with my kids to stay home for a couple of years, then got back into the workforce, learning there's this online based business. So I got back into the workforce in an operational role. I did fractional COO work. And when you do fractional work, meaning you work part-time, you can have a couple of clients. And my book of business, if you will, got full rather quickly, because you can only, you can't service 10, 20 clients. So I started telling people that wanted to work with me, I can help you find someone. And so I was doing this, introduction. You should meet Sarah. Sarah's great. Well, I did that one time and it did not go well. And I was like, oh, I don't like having my name attached to that. So I offered to help do a hiring process for a client. And then from there, after doing about 5 of those, a business partner of mine said, I think we have a business here. And so we were doing these hiring projects, and as I began studying and getting more experience and understanding the recruitment job, essentially, we're now a full-blown recruiting agency and been in business. And I've been doing it for about 5 years.
I love that part about Sarah, where you talked about how you initially brought her in and said, this person might be a good fit. Here you go, check it out, and it didn't work out. And I love that. It reminds me. I spoke with I think his name was Bill, if I remember right. He was a teacher that got into real estate, and he tried doing the whole flipping thing. And he said, if I mean, this was a while ago now, but he said it did not work out well at all. I think he made like some money, but he lost a lot of money too. And it's cool to hear those stories because it's so often you hear that everything was great and wonderful and it all worked out in the end. So it's nice to hear when it's like, it doesn't always happen that way.
No, no. And if it does, I mean, I don't know, you're kissed by, I don't know what blessing you have over your life, but I think everybody has those twists and turns in their career path.
Talk to me about growing your business. What was that like? I spoke with another person. The name eludes me, but he had a horse business, and he talked about he was, I think, stuck in traffic if I remember right, and they needed someone to do the work, and they ended up like calling up. I don't know if it was like an intern or a volunteer. I can't remember the capacity of the person, but in this story, he says he gets off the phone, he's talking to his wife, and he's like, "I think we just hired our first person." So talk to me about that. Talk to me about when you hired that first person to work for you. What was that process like?
I had a business partner early on. We co-founded the business together. So we did a lot of operational work together, but quickly, probably within 8 months, we realized we need some administrative help at the very least. And so we hired our first virtual assistant on a part-time basis, and it was glorious. I mean, obviously I'm in the hiring business and the team growth business, so I'm a proponent of it. But if you're a business owner and you haven't had the opportunity to do that, I highly encourage you to, because it can become somewhat addictive, because all of a sudden someone is doing this work and you have this time opened up to focus on other things. And while you're doing that, other people are getting work done. And it was a very eye-opening moment in terms of productivity and growth. And so unfortunately that person didn't, for life reasons, she moved on, but we did find someone shortly after that that's still with us today. And we went through several iterations of team growth. We brought on several recruiters part-time, thinking, oh, they can just, grow with us when we have a busy month and then slow down when we don't. And we found that didn't work out well because they weren't available if we needed them again. And so now we have full-time people on the team, and that works out much better because it's consistent and we know there's reliability. But yes, I love hiring people.
So let's talk more about that, bringing in those recruiters. So if someone wants to be a recruiter, what are some of the skills that they need to have? Do they need to have a certain track record with their career? Do they need to have certain education? What are you looking for when you're bringing in someone as a recruiter to your agency?
So I'm a little unique because it's not as if I went to college and said, I want to be a recruiter. I have a bachelor's in communications, which I guess is transferable and would work fine. But recruiting, sometimes people lump it together with sales, and they also lump it together. It's a function of the HR department, but it is a little bit of both. It's a people business. And so you're doing a deal, essentially. You are helping a company hire a person. And when you're dealing with people, there's uncertainty. This person that you're hiring could have 3 other job offers. This company could have a quarterly meeting and decide to totally change their hiring initiative. And so the deal can fall apart. And I have been at the 11th hour multiple times where the company has done a verbal offer, the candidate accepts it, we're getting it in writing, and then all of a sudden they don't move forward. I have story after story.
What are some of the common reasons why something like that happens?
Usually it has to do with there's another offer on the table and they accept that one, and they're kind of keeping their cards close to their chest and not telling us, even though as a recruiter, it's your job to uncover, mitigate as much risk for the company as possible. So understanding if they have other job offers, if they have big life circumstances that would make them not be able to work in the next 90 days, including pregnancy. And even though, you can't ask that in an interview, but things like that, you need to understand. But yeah, I've had someone have a medical emergency on day 1 of their job, and then the company decided not to move forward with them because of the unreliability. I've had another person just at the 11th hour saying, my gut's telling me no, and he just did not accept the offer. But usually there's another offer on the table.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes complete sense. Okay, so let's talk about how do I want to phrase this? How does your agency or an agency like yours typically get money from this? Are you working on like a retainer with companies that every month they give you so much money? Or, if you bring in someone and they're making, $75,000 a year, you get a percentage of that as like a finder's fee. How does that typically work for recruitment agencies?
Yeah, there's recruitment. I think the model most people are familiar with is the percentage of the salary. And I have done that where, um, if we bring in director of marketing, the percentage right now, industry standard is around 18%. It can go up to 25 of the total salary. And so it's called contingency recruiting. So all the risk is on my end as the recruiter. I'm hoping to place somebody because it's a huge payday when it happens, but usually you're competing with internal resources of the company. They're also recruiting potentially other recruiting agencies. So there's that model. Startups tend to use that quite a bit because they're hiring rapidly and they need lots of people. The model we use is retained recruitment. You mentioned this. So we do have a couple clients that pay us a monthly retainer each month, and we just continually do roles for them. But for the companies that don't have more than one role, we do a retained model where it's a flat fee and it's 50% up front, 50% when the person's placed. And that really allows us to be a part of their company and takes this pressure off of someone else is also recruiting, you're competing, which is a healthy model, but ours is, we come in and we really adopt your culture, and we believe in hiring first for culture and second skill set. And it allows us to that focus and that energy to do so.
Okay, that makes sense. So Laura, you said you've been doing this business for about 5 years, right?
Yes.
Okay. So at this point in time, is a lot of the business that you get, is that all from repeat firms? Are you still, do you still have to do legwork at this point to try to bring in new business, or is your track record, does that carry you far enough that you need to go right now?
Yes, all the above. Repeat clients, we work a lot off of referrals, and so people telling other companies about us. But yes, do have to do legwork to bring in new clients, always doing that. But I also believe in really focusing on our product and process to the best of our ability to really make the clients happy, so they will tell other people about them. So I will say we're about 80% off of referrals.
Yeah, you kind of touched on this a little bit in the beginning, but let's dive a little deeper on this. If someone wants to start doing what you're doing, they want to be a recruiter. They say, yes, this sounds fantastic. I like this. The percentage of the other person's salary. I love this. This speaks to me. If someone wants to do this, how can they, what's the best way for them to get started? What do they need to do? Do they need to get any extra education? Do they need to partner with someone like you first to try to get their foot in the door? What would work out best in your opinion?
The best way to get into this business is really experience. Just like a sales job, you have to, you start out kind of the low rung of the ladder, doing all your cold calling and then building up a book of business, moving up the ladder, et cetera. It's similar in recruiting. So right now, it's a company's market. It's not a candidate's market. So recruiting is a field that's kind of hurting, but it will flip. It always does. It goes back and forth. And so when it does, there will be a lot of recruiter spots open. And so I would recommend getting your foot in the door somewhere where you can learn, whether that's working in an agency like mine, where you work with a lot of different clients, a lot of different roles. There's agencies out there that do that, or you go and you work for a specific company. I mean, I know someone that's a recruiter for companies that do coal mining. That's what they do. And so finding specific engineers and plant managers, et cetera, is part of her job. And so she's very niched and specialized, and she's worked her way up starting entry level. And so getting your foot in the door just to gain that experience, I believe, is the best. I didn't come up again in the education path, the traditional path. So I don't know if there's a specific certification you want to get. I've never had one. It has not hindered me. I think it really is, do you like people? It's a lot of talking to people. It's a lot of making those connections. Do you like, at the end when you're closing the deal, it does feel like a rush of a sales, closing a sale, and you have to be Johnny on the spot at the end to get that done. It's text messages. I mean, this isn't the norm, but texting on the weekend or at night, like, hey, what do you think? We're to send you the offer tomorrow. Just making sure, you have as much information as possible.
When you're talking about it being a candidate's market versus a hiring company's market, and you talked about, there could be the flipping. What are some indicators that you just got to keep your eye on the economy? Do you look at, if the feds are cutting rates, it might have an impact on this. Is there anything like that that could indicate that a flip could be happening?
Keeping on the economy and seeing what sectors are growing is definitely important. I mean, there are some stable recruiting areas, healthcare being one, because they always need recruitment. But hey, you know how we can all fill our own algorithm on social media or news fed to us. I follow a lot of other recruiters and hear what they're saying, and the news, looking for companies that are doing the mass layoffs. The more of those that happen, the less beneficial it is for all those candidates, because then there's a lot more people looking for jobs. Also, the news right now is a lot of companies are requiring people to go back to the office versus this remote work style that we've been able to benefit from and people seemingly love. And so if the economy does grow, companies grow, they hire more people, the candidate pool gets a little bit less, and then they can demand more because the companies have less people to fish from. And so they can demand to work at home. They can say, I have multiple offers. So it really is economy driven. So when companies are doing well, recruiters are needed more, candidates are more highly sought after.
That makes complete sense. Okay, so way back at the beginning of our conversation, you talked about the big five. I think it was industries that you work with. Okay, so is that very typical for recruiters? Do they typically have a very narrow? I'm going to say narrow vision, for lack of better words, in the industries they work with, or do some recruiters are just like, I'll look to get anyone for anywhere? What does that typically look like?
Oh, this is so funny. I feel like recruiters, we have a little bit of, is it an ego or a false optimism? Because every recruiter I've talked to, we're like, I can hire any role. You just give it to me. Like, I've got this. Well, probably not good idea to give me a nuclear engineer role. Probably couldn't fill that, but I would tell you I could. But that's what recruiters tend to do. So, but yes, recruiters do niche down into certain job roles or certain industries. So for us, we do online businesses. So digital marketing companies, agencies, SaaS, coaches, course creators. But in their businesses, we'll recruit for different areas of their company. We don't do heavy tech stuff like developers or any type of that work, but we do. I mentioned it was sales, marketing, operations, delivery, and finance. So could I find a financial person for a law firm? I'm going to tell you I could, but law firm is not our target market. So we don't have a lot of experience working with law firms.
Okay, so tangentially related to all of that, how important is it for you as a recruiter to know specifics about specific jobs? So, for instance, if you are working with, you're looking for a nuclear engineer or something like that, how important is it to have any kind of background on either nuclear physics or engineering, or you pick up whatever through osmosis, and that's good enough to get through? How important is that information for you?
Well, so knowing the role is supremely important. That's really what I believe is a superpower of a recruiter, because you're able to, when you're looking through over 1,000 candidates for one role, you're able to sort through the noise and be like, no, 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 there it is. Yes. But in terms of, do you need a nuclear physics degree in order to recruit a nuclear engineer? No, but you certainly need to understand what the role requires. You need to understand the terminology, what it means. You can't just blindly go, and you have to be able to talk the talk. I don't know if you have to be able to walk the walk, I guess is the best way, but you have to be able to and comprehend the talk as well.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So how about this? You mentioned earlier, headhunters work with on the side of the person's looking for the job, and the recruiters coming out from the opposite end. How often do recruiters work with headhunters and say, like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Do you have anyone? How often does that happen?
From my experience, not often, because there's only so much money can go around in that deal. And so headhunters get paid handsomely, but they get a salary from the candidate that gets placed. So you give me some of your salary. And so everyone's looking for that cut of the pie. And if you work together, it's not that much money.
That makes sense. Okay. All right. If someone is looking to hire a recruiter, what's a good way to vet them? Is there like a platform that people can go to? Should they just, leverage their network? What's the best way for someone to find a recruiter?
That's a good question. I'm not familiar with a platform that exists necessarily to find the recruiter. It does tend to be word of mouth, search, Google searches, that sort of thing. But when you're vetting your recruiter, you do want to understand again, back to what I talked about, how a recruiter's going to tell you they can hire, they can find anybody. That's what we're going to say because that's what we believe. But you want to understand what's your track record. What role have you hired? Have you been in my industry? Is this a new role for you? How long do the candidates stay after you place them? Things such as that. How many years of experience? What companies have you worked for? So those are questions I get a lot that people want to understand. How long is the guarantee if a candidate doesn't work out? So those would be the primary things, but I would say paramount, you really want to understand if they know the role and industry you're hiring for, because I've actually worked with quite a few people that have, hired a local staffing agency or just a recruiter in general. They're like, they didn't understand my business at all. And whereas I did, because all I work with are businesses like yours. So
That's awesome. That's great information. Thank you for that. Laura, this is the part of the show where I'd like to invite the person I'm speaking with to either talk about a project they are currently working on, a cause they believe in, or more about their business. So if there's something more that you'd like to talk about, I'm going to open the floor up to you.
oh, well, thank you. Yeah, we what we find, the people that I work with tend to be someone that built a business but aren't necessarily business builders. So they have a specific skill, they teach others, whatever it may be, or they stumble into their company and now they have a team of 10, 20, 30 people and they're like, what's happening? And people are in the wrong roles. So we actually are about to launch a physical product, which is so fun and exciting. And it's called 57 Hats. And it's a card deck, if you've seen those online. And it's the whole premise is, as business owners, we have hats on our head, right? And how many hats are you wearing as the business owner? Probably currently 10 to 15. And so it's the whole premise is get hats off your head and bring people in to help you. And so 57 hats is 57 roles. And it's kind of like this card game where you lay them out and we walk you through on how to put them in piles and understand which biggest bang for your buck will be to get that hat off of your head. And so we've been working on that. It's September. It's been about 9 months, which is really fun, exciting. The design process, something total I've never been a part of. And actually getting the prototype, having the box in hand. So we're really excited to launch that and get that in business owners' hands to help them have a physical tool. Because, a lot of business owners are the whiteboard type. They need this physicality of mapping something out or sticky notes. And so this kind of plays into that.
That sounds awesome. I'll make sure I get all of those links from you so that they can go on the website in the show notes. So when people are looking for that information, they can find it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely. Laura, it's been absolutely great having you on Time We Discuss. We'll learn what it's like to be a recruiter.
Thank you for having me.